I'm Will, and I like toys. So we've been going over a giant lot of Transformers that I bought from a local comic shop. Just been sitting in their storage room for a while. Based on what was in here, I'd say at least 2 years, give or take. Um, and they made me a deal. I bought them. The goal is to sell the bulk of them and to keep some. I paid $250 plus tax, so $264. Plus, I bought some packing material for my eBay store to sell them. It's been a while since I've done big bulk eBay selling like this. Actually, never like this. Usually, I've done lots or individual items here and there, but never anything this big. So this is a nice, fun project and a test and a way to bring in a little bit of cash. But let's look at some fun stuff. The stuff that I kept. I kept them either because they're characters I like, or they're all characters I like, or because this is the best version of that character that I've ever seen, or the only version, or honestly, they're worth almost nothing. And it was just as valuable to keep them. So we will go through the Transformers and then two non Transformers that I kept from my giant lot. So, first step is Blaster. Blaster is a Transformer who can turn into a boombox. I've always found that very funny. He also kind of has like a radio show and is like a DJ and plays music. In the cartoon, he was obsessed with music. He would even turn into a boombox and attend concerts with the human characters. And in the comic, he had like sort of this like Robin Williams in Good Morning Vietnam, inspirational DJ sort of vibe to him during the war on Cybertron. But the main reason I kept him is because of the gimmick. All the boombox guys, so Twincast, Soundwave, Blaster, have the ability to put a little cassette in there. And cassettes are totally outdated, but that feels right for Transformers. Sometimes they call them like data sticks or other things in Transformers. So this is his cassette sidekick. There's a bunch of different mini cassettes, like Ravage and Rumble and Rewind, all our names. Frenzy, Bramhorn, who is a rhino. Come on. I'm trying to transform this one, who his name is Eject. And this is Eject. He's pretty well articulated, and he's a nice little sidekick for Blaster. Let's see if we can get him to sit on his shoulders, right? I do not own any of the other mini cassettes. I've always wanted to. I did get another one in this lot, which was a remake of Rumble. But he's the red and black Rumble, how he looked in the original toy line. I prefer the purple and blue Rumble from the movie. The red and black one I always think is Frenzy. So I probably even called him Frenzy in the original video. But I'm going to sell him because he's not as well articulated, and Rumble I prefer. There's a version of him that comes with like his shock hammers that stick on his arms. So that's the one I'm keeping an eye out for. And then if I did get another mini cassette, I do like the animal ones like Rat Bat, who is a bat. The lion one, whose name I can't remember now. Lionizer, Leonizer, something like that. But my favorite one is Rewind, who looks exactly like Eject, but I want the slightly larger one from the Titans Return series because Rewind is in a long-term committed relationship with another male-presenting Transformer named Chrome Dome, who's a headmaster. It means his head pops off and it turns into a little robot. And the figures of Chrome Dome are a little smaller than this one. He's going to be the same size as the next figure I'm going to show. And I want them to be able to be the same height together because even though they're not real and they're plastic, it would hurt my heart to not have them have the ability to give each other a hug. That's lame. Maybe I'll cut that. But so the Rewind that they made that was larger than this, he turns into a cassette, he turns into a tank, and he turns into like a data computer thing. So not the perfect version, but is the best scale height. There are some third-party ones, and one of my favorite third-party ones is a set where you get Chrome Dome and Rewind, and they come with hands that you can attach so that they hold hands, which is wonderful. So I love them, love those characters, and keeping an eye out for versions of those that can go together. So Eject is perfect for a mini cassette, and Blaster is perfect as a cassette player. Interested in getting other mini cassettes in the future. I know the Perceptor, who turns into a microscope. Don't know why he comes with them, but Perceptor, the Studio 86 movie one that I think Target has, came with Ramhorn and Ratbat in this scale. So in theory, if I had them, they could fit right in here like that. So that's Blaster. Okay, like I was saying, Headmasters. This is Hardhead. He is your standard soldier. Very tough. That's why he's got a gun, as well as a tank turret that goes on his back and also swivels around. But a headmaster means their heads pop off. It's a gimmick that started in Japan as their sequel to one of the G1, the Generation 1 Transformers cartoon. They decided what else would be cool except to have the heads pop off and turn into little robots who can also sit in the cockpit and drive it in vehicle mode. So he turns into a tank. I really like this one because he's got great articulation, great posability. I'm glad that the head is here. And an interesting thing, the tiny little ball joint in the head makes it so his head has great expression and posability, while still being able to like come off and not really, it stays on, which is great. I love that. But so the transformation on this is really pleasing. He's got these giant tank treads, the tiny little wheels, and he rolls really great. And he's the only headmaster that I have so far until I can get Chrome Dome or Brainstorm. And I thought he was really cool. So I'm keeping him. Next up, we have one of the badass lady Transformers. So there's disagreement in the different writers and stuff of Transformers. Originally, they were said to not have gender, which makes sense and doesn't make sense. But eventually they added some female-presenting Transformers, Autobots and Decepticons. RC was one of the first, Alita 1, and there's also Chromia. She's really cool. So she is like a badass. She's a member of Alita 1's like squad of badass ladies with Greenlight, Moonracer, Lancer, RC. Yeah, but so she's cool. I like the shade of blue. I did give her this extra gun that I found in the accessory bit. I put the little bomb that came with her on it because she seems like someone who'd be like a badass sniper, especially because she's got some great posability that I can, and like this joint in her wrist for transformation purposes. She's got a big backpack, which also feels like a little bit like someone who would hike through a mountain with like their weapons and survival gear. But she turns into this cool Cybertronian blue car with this great windshield, and there's blast damages. I think she died in the movie that this figure is from, probably while there's blast damages. But I've always thought she was a really cool figure. I like the expression on her face, which is sort of this like stoic, badass expression. So I decided to keep Chromia. And along with Chromia, I decided to keep the leader of that squadron, Alita 1. So this is the Alita 1 from Powers of the Primes, which were these a combination of giant figures who could combine with the smaller figures to make a giant sort of Combaticon, Converter, I can't remember the right word. Basically a Voltron thing. Or your Megazord. Alita 1 is normally stylized more like Chromia and RC, where she's sort of more feminine and skinny and I like the idea of this being a different body type for her. That she is, in my mind, the reason she is one of the top leaders, also the love interest for Optimus Prime, is she is like this badass, unstoppable warrior. And that's because the character she used to be was named Ariel. I think started with an E. And then her and Orion Pax, her boyfriend, who became Optimus Prime, got blown up in an explosion. And then they were saved by some augmentations, and that's when Optimus Prime got so like big and badass. So to me, it makes sense that Elita One would also be big and badass because they both had the same sort of life-saving experiment. So I like these giant fists, like sort of things, which really convert to make it so you can rotate out to make the connection for where other joints would connect for the combining feature. The combiners, that's the word. And then she has, normally she's not a jet, normally she's like another Cybertronian car, kind of like Chromia and RC. But I like the jet, and it's got all these chrome stickers and the giant feet, and the way she converts is really funny to me, where like the legs fold in, so it makes her look real short. But yeah, I think this is a fun Elita One. The head looks right. She's got her signature like weird extra stick out things on the side where her like ears would be on the helmet, and then the like horns. She does have a giant head in here so that she can be the torso and head for a much larger combiner, which normally they've shown as like a bunch of the other female presenting Autobots. But in theory, you can connect and swap with different ones. But yeah, so this is going to be the Elita One that I have. Not that there's anything wrong with all the other ones, but until they do one who's got sort of like the grizzled, sick of war badass from the Energon Universe Transformers comic that Robert Kirkman is doing. Is that Robert Kirkman? Or is it. Skybound is doing it as part of Image, so Robert Kirkman runs that. I can't remember if he's actually writing the comic or if it's Daniel Warren Johnson. It's probably Daniel Warren Johnson because Robert Kirkman is doing Void Rivals, which is in space and has Springer and Hot Rod and other Transformers in it. Okay, I digress. But so I'm going to keep Elita 1. I think she's awesome, and I like this version of her being so giant. It's got stickers that say E1, and on the back it says Elita 1, and her having this like jetpack. Yeah, this is going to be the Elita 1 that I think I'll keep in my collection. And there, I knocked a bunch over. Okay, next up is one of the mini-bots. I like the mini-bots because they were... Okay, I'm not a Bumblebee fan. I think Bumblebee's fine. That Origins one is probably my favorite one so far. I like him when he's in his VW bug mode. But the other sort of little car one, not for me. Like, I don't really care for Bumper or any of those guys, except for Cliffjumper. And that's because when they did the Prime universe and the later ones where they gave him, like, the bullhorn accessory from the front of, like, a Texan car on his head, and they made him a little bigger, even though he's supposed to be a mini-bot. I really liked that aesthetic, so I will keep an eye out for a Cliffjumper with that aesthetic. I know they put one out in a 4-pack recently, but I don't really need the other three, who are Tarantulas, Squeeze Play, I think it's his name, which is a weird name, and Tarn, who I haven't read any of the comics with Tarn in it, even though he was a big bad from a bunch of comics. Okay, so some of the mini-bots are ones I've been looking for. You know, like Sea Spray and Beachcomber and Pipes. And then these next two. So Huffer, who mold is basically the same as Pipes except for a slightly different coloration and a different torso. But I really like him. I thought I might sell him for a while, but he's got great articulation. I know people were complaining about like the ankle rocker and the heel spurs and the backpack, but like because of his transformation, he's got a good ab crunch. His head doesn't have a lot. And then as I researched more of Huffer, I found out that he's the character that in the cartoon is the grumpy, sort of hates everything, bad news kind of guy. And I love that. That makes me like him even more. And I had forgotten that about this character. So I'm keeping Huffer. And along with Huffer is another mini-bot who there were multiples of in this lot. There was a complete one, there was a reissue G1, and then there was this one. The complete one had his shield. It's also like the front part of the tank when he converts, but this is Warpath. This is the Earthrise Warpath. So he's got all these extra details and extra like textures, not nearly as smooth as some of the others, which I think works for this tank. The gun extends out, which you actually have to do to fold the head in to transform him. And I've always thought this character is really cool. I like the idea that he has these tank tread wheels for his feet. In my head, it's like he's wearing constant roller skates, and he's just like rolling around, shooting people, doing cool parkour moves. So I've liked Warpath from the comic, I've liked him from the original cartoon, and so I'm happy to have him as another mini bot along with Huffer. Hopefully down the line I can find Beachcomber and Sea Spray and Pipes. Those are the three that are the most appealing. And then if I find the Cliff Jumper with the cool horns. Okay, next up is a character definitely I've loved since childhood. I knew I was going to keep one version of him. I thought I might keep the optimal one, the titanium one. I did find his second arm, so he's complete, except for his stand. But I decided to keep the Kingdom Netflix version of Optimus Primal. He is the leader of the Maximals, so the Beast Wars version of the Autobots, and it's from way in the future. And he took his name from the original Optimus Prime. In the Kingdom cartoon on Netflix, the Beast Wars ones meet the classic Transformers, the Autobots, and the Predacons, where the bad guys meet the Decepticons, and there's like sort of a great team up between the two. Basically, the Autobots, the Maximals, in the super future, because of a spaceship crash and some weird things, got stuck on a planet where there was no humans and no machines, but lots of like traditional organic rainforest and jungle life. So, gorillas and dinosaurs and bugs and bats and rats and rhinos, sharks, eagles, all kinds of stuff. But so he led the Maximals, and he sort of had this like gruff downer vibe to him. I guess I like people whose lives are difficult. But so this is the best version of Optimus Primal that I've ever seen. It takes all the coloring and styling from the old toy and from the cartoon. It's got a pretty good transformation that turns into a really good looking gorilla. And I'm a fan of apes. Honestly, I wish I had still had my Animorph Transformers, which I had as a kid. So my favorite one was, I think it was Marco, who turned into a gorilla. And the gorilla form was my favorite because I always like a articulated gorilla figure. So this is the best of both of those. It's a good Optimus Primal, and it is a good gorilla figure. So I'm keeping it because I also love Beast Wars, probably more than the original Transformers. But I only have so many Beast Wars characters. Okay. Next up is from the Generation 2 comic series, G-Axis. So I did find one of his little wings, missing the other one, and missing his silver gun. But I decided to keep G-Axis because I love the proportion. I love that this is a comic-accurate version of him. He is, a new Decepticon. He even gets a new Decepticon logo. And he's just really evil. So he's great in the comic. But this is a fantastic figure. It's got great articulation. The transformation, other than not having a great spot for the arms, when he turns into his like weird space jet, is great. He's got articulated hands that close and open, which is great, because then I can have him sort of like the equivalent of grab someone by their collar, the collar of their shirt, or the tank bit, and hang him over an edge. His gun is great. He can hold the bottom part, so it looks really cool. I love the head. It's very stylized, exactly like the comic. So yeah, there's a combination of reasons for this one. Great figure, badass character, but also incredibly accurate to the comic, and huge comic fan, if you can't tell from all these comics, and then there's a whole bunch you can't see here, and a huge stack right there. So, very happy to have G-Axis on my keep pile. Next up is, because this guy's worth absolutely nothing, and after watching a lot of Transformers, Armada, and Energon, and Cybertron, and all the ones with the little mini cons, the little guys are have a special place for me. This is Bomb Shock. He's missing his leg, so he's extra worth nothing. He's from a 2-pack of Micromasters that you can probably still find for like new in the box, like $15. So loose, he's probably like $8. Missing his leg, like $5. And after eBay fees, $1 maybe in profit. But like, that's fine. I do think if it came down to it and I wasn't selling anything and there was no more of these online, I'd maybe sell him for $1. But he's fun. Turns into a little tank. He's an evil little Decepticon. I've been sitting him on like G-Axis's shoulder, like sort of like a explosive little Iago on Jafar shoulder, sort of bad guy. So that's fun. Also, he's someone to fight Eject from Blaster, just his size. Next up is Cutthroat, who is one of the Terrorcons, and this is from the Power of the Prime series, I believe, or Titan's Return. Power of the Primes, I think. He is missing his pterodactyl head that attaches here, and would fold up and make it so he could fully turn into a pterodactyl. And I think he's missing also his little pack. The pack that I found that I thought was his is actually was actually an armor pack for one of the Cyberverse shockwaves that I found. So I attached it to him, also with that like pink and purple satellite bit. So he's complete. So I posted him. We'll see if he sells. But so I decided to keep Cutthroat. He's a Terracon, so that's a faction of Decepticons that are like these weird kind of dinosaurs and monsters that combine to make a giant combiner creature named Abominibus, I think. But yeah, I like the Terracons. I now own 2, and feel I need to get the other 3, who are Ripper, Snipper, Blot, and I cannot remember the last one, but there is definitely another one whose name will hit me in like 2 days, like Jaw something. But so Cutthroat, keeping him. I like the wings. I like the color scheme. The transformation is pretty stupid, especially without the head, because you kind of just like fold the legs up and then put new feet out and put the arms to the side and the wings, and it just looks like a weird thing. But he has this part that comes out because he can form an arm or a leg in Abominibus. So I'm very happy to have him. He's a fun color scheme, and I like the character. And he attaches to hun-gurrr, HUN-GURRRRRR, who is the main torso for Abominibus from the Terracons. He leads the Terracons. He's larger than all of them. And so Cutthroat attaches to him. You can either attach him in here as like an arm, or there's a way to attach the leg, and now I can't remember how to do it. I did transform this guy the other day to try and see what it would look like, because you can see he's got the big head inside for Abominibus, who he even has his little like antenna bits, which I always think are great. Right now it just looks like he has a face on his crotch, but when you transform him, he becomes the torso. It's like this, upside down, this part folds down, and then the other Terracons make the other limbs. Oh, that's how it is. It's in here, in like the knee is where the other limb attaches. But so, I love this character. I think he's badass looking. I think he's cool. He turns into a 2-headed dragon with 4 legs. Kind of a very Godzilla-looking, Mecha Godzilla kind of character. I also think it's wonderful that a character that's called a Terrorcon has so much bright pink. And so him and Cutthroat, I've got, of the 5 Terracons, I've got 40%. I will now have to find the other 60 at some point before I die. I got some time, though, I think. So he's the main reason I wanted this lot, because I became obsessed with trying to remember who he was, trying to research him. I thought he was a plane at first, because he does look very similar to how Decepticon planes look. And then as I discovered who he really was, and that he was a two-headed dragon and called a Terrorcon, I was like, oh shit, now I need that guy. So I was very happy to get this lot. Specifically, he was the main driver, and then all the rest were fun extra treasures and profits. Okay, this last one is, well, this last Transformer is going to seem like kind of anticlimactic, but I'm very happy about this. This is Iguanus. He's from an era called the Pretenders. They were robots who would put on organic, like, skin suits and turn into organic-looking beings and pretend to be them. The Decepticons had Iguanus, who he would turn into this, like, weird lizard monster. Skullgrin, who was this giant monster with, like, ribs sticking through and a fanged, like, ram skull. They had one called Octopunch, who was like a scuba diver with octopus limbs. What else did they have? They had this bat one, who I can't think of his name now. And they had a few. And then the Autobots had one. They would turn into, like, humans. But so in the comics, there's a chunk of time where they were like this new level of monster. And the fact that they were robots who put on suits so that they could hide, but then the bad guys turned into, like, giant creatures is very funny and very cool to me. But this is a core class Iguanus from the Legacy series. You can buy these new for like $5 to $8, so he's worth almost nothing, which made me feel not guilty at all about keeping him. He turns into, so the Pretenders now, instead of having the shell that came off, that was the creature, they now turn into sort of a hybrid vehicle mode as well as the creature. So Skullgrin turns into a tank. The bat one, Bomb Burst, I think maybe is his name, has a bat head but then turns into a plane. Iguanus turns into a cool space motorcycle with, like, a laser gun. And, like, his tail is the seat. So he's pretty cool. There's something sort of combining monsters and robots that 100% I am the target audience for, because my interest is basically the same as when I was 8. So I'm happy to have Iguanus as part of the collection. So those are the Transformers I'm keeping. The non-Transformers, Ben from Treasure Planet, McDonald's toy. I just think he's funny. And then this game piece that is a Sphinx that shoots a laser and has a laser warning. I like Egyptian mythology, and the fact that it shoots a laser is kind of cool. And the fact that it has this very interesting don't shine this in your eyes laser radiation sticker on the back. Also funny to me. But so I'm going to keep those. So that's what I'm keeping. And next time we will talk about the instructions and the accessories, and I will show off maybe the completed Devastator, and if I can get that Harley-Davidson X-Bot back together, I'll show that off. All in all, what I'm keeping is probably, let's see, 30, 45. I could just do math and then maybe figure it out. Shoot. Turns out when you drop a bunch of Transformers on your laptop, they just start typing numbers. So let's say that each of these was about $15 in sales. And that's 10, so 150 plus the 5 for Iguanus and the 2 for Bomb Shock. It's about $157 worth of stuff that I'm keeping for myself, which is 10%. That is what I'm paying myself for the work, and then the rest of the money, that profit, is going to go towards massive amounts of bills from a very expensive Europe trip that my wife Lisa and I took. But that's it. Thank you, everyone, if you actually watched, or if you didn't, also thank you. That's fine. And as always, my name is Will, and I like toys.